Hey everyone, welcome to the very first video on my channel. In this video, we are going to understand what a prompt is and what prompt engineering actually means. You might have noticed that sometimes change just a few words in a prompt can completely change the response generated by an AI model. But why does this happen? In this video, we will understand how prompts work, why large language models are sensitive to them, and how prompt engineering helps us get better outputs from AI system. So let's start with the basics. What exactly is a prompt? A prompt is basically an instruction which you provide to your AI model or LLM to tell it what it needs to generate. It could be either a text, image, audio, or a combination of all three. Now that we are clear with what a prompt is, moving forward to prompt engineering. Prompt engineering is basically an approach of designing effective prompts to instruct our model to perform a desired task. Suppose we are a beginner who need to understand machine learning. So we could have a simple prompt like explain machine learning or a different prompt which gives more clarity, that is explain machine learning to a beginner in bullet points with examples. So as you can see in the second prompt, it's quite clear and would help the LLM in generating a better response. These are basically the four components of an prompt, which are instruction, context, input data, and output indicator, which we will discuss further. Moving forward to why do we actually need to study about prompt engineering? The primary reason is LLMs are very sensitive to prompts. So we need to understand that LLMs don't actually understand prompts like we human do. They are statistical models who predict the next word based on the likelihood of it, based on probability. And even a small change in wordings can actually cause a huge impact in the interpretation and dramatically affect the output. So for getting better results and better output, we need to have to study prompt engineering. So as we can see in this example, in our first prompt, we actually don't want the LLM to output an answer of list of movies based on personal interest. So in the first prompt, we specifically stated do not ask for interests or and not ask for personal information and just suggest the best movies globally. But still, we could see the LM still asked for our personal preference. So in the second prompt, we actually tried to improve the prompt. The main thing which we tried was not only suggesting what not to do, but what actually is needed to be done. And we could clearly see that in the output, we got a better response and it actually suggested what were the top global trending movies at that particular time. So these are the four basic elements of prompt. The first is the instruction, which is basically the task you want the AI to perform, which could be summarization, question answering, or explanation of a particular topic. Second is context. Context is basically the extra information to guide the response. So, like if we are a beginner, we provide that we are a beginner and explain in beginner friendly tone or explain in depth with examples like that. The third is input data, which basically is in text or image or any audio. Suppose we want to summarize a paragraph, so the actual paragraph which we provide is the input data. And fourth is the output indicator, which basically tells in what format do we want out. That is in bullet points, the length of the paragraph, or we want it in .json form. That all is controlled by the output indicator. Now, one thing which you need to note is that in all the prompts which we provide to our LLM, it's not necessary that all four of them need to be present. But if all four of them are present, it's obviously very good, but it depends on the use case. So here is a complete prompt example which you can see. So we can see that the instruction that is explain the concept of machine learning. The context which is provided is explained for a first year engineering student who has no prior knowledge of AI. The input data, that is what we need to understand. That is in this case, what is machine learning and where it is used. And output indicator, that what format we want an output. So you can see instruction is basically what we need to understand, like what we need the LLM to be. Context is in what tone we need the response. Input data is what actually we need the answer for. And output indicator is in what format or style we want the answer. Moving forward, we are going to see how prompt engineering actually works or what prompt engineers actually do. So basically, the first step which prompt engineers do is create a prompt to ask the LLM for an output. And based on that output, try different prompting techniques like zero shot, few shot, or chain of thought methods to improve the results which we gain. You don't need to worry as of now these methods. We will be covering them in further videos. And after that, we need to observe how the output changes. If we get a better response, we stick to that particular prompt and keep on improving. So it's basically a trial and error approach. So these are a few of the best practices which prompt engineers need to keep in mind. So firstly, we need to have a clear goal on what we want to achieve or what question we need the answer for. Secondly, we need to keep the prompt simple because we don't need to confuse the model on what we actually want and just feed it enough information so it would output correct information. Thirdly, use relevant information. Like suppose I want to understand about machine learning, I won't input information about my cat or my dog because it's not relevant in this particular context. And fourthly, test and iterate. Try different prompting techniques and see which one suits better for your particular use case. These are few of the best practices which are kept in mind by prompt engineers. So the question is, why do we need to study prompt engineering and how it actually became popular? So the primary reason it became popular was that in the current LLMs, we have observed that only by changing a slight bit of our prompt, we can actually get better response. As opposed to in previous times when we had our machine learning traditional models, if we had a new task, we actually needed to retrain the model entirely from scratch. But in current world, in large language models, we have observed that just by changing a prompt in a better way, we have seen significant improvement in the results. So that's why prompt engineering become popular. Finally, we are going to look at how prompt engineering has evolved over time. So firstly, we used to just focus on basic prompting. Followed by that, we focused on few prompting techniques like zero shot, few shot, or chain of thought. And lately, we have been using techniques like React and RAG and agents. So we will be covering each of these techniques in detail in our upcoming videos. And that's all from my side. Hope you like this video. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and let me know how I can improve further. Thank you.